Hey, what's up, man? I just recorded this entire thing and realized I didn't hit record. So we're doing it round two here, but now I actually am gonna sound like I know what I'm talking about. So maybe it's better for you. This is the whole patch right here, as you heard. And the key to making this, I think, is the combination of real world instruments plus the synthesized instrument of the brass. So let me show you the synthesized piece that is made out of serum. This is serum only. So you can hear it sounds good, but it doesn't sound as full as you would expect from like the Chainsmokers and from the sample we played a minute ago. And that's because, again, I think it's combined with real world instruments. So this is it alone. Then I'll add in the brass. Then I'll add in the strings. So I definitely think it makes it feel more full. And now listen to it again without the synthesized brass. This is the crazy piece. This is without the synthesized part. So you can hear it sounds really good. Like it sounds like a real world band is playing the the sounds or the notes, but it's when you add in the synthesized brass that it actually fills it out and makes it kind of in your face, like I think both of us like from that song. See how it definitely fills it out way more. So I'll show you the serum piece real quick here. So this is actually made from a real sample. I actually don't have the sample because I got this one off of, I think I got off Splice. I'm pretty sure I got this one off Splice, but I know how it's made. I'm gonna show you how to make it real quick. Just so, because I think I don't know, it blew my mind when I learned how to do this, and it's a lot simpler than you would think to make a synthesized instrument. And I think that is honestly how a lot of these producers get that really full sound. Um, so let's go through that. Actually, we'll go through that in a second. Let me go through these real quick. So you have the strings here. And this is all through the Contact library, the factory library. So I'm using solo strings, string ensemble, come on, and the violin ensemble. So, and I made them all, I put them all in staccato too for the strings. Then we have the brass. Again, Contact factory library, brass ensemble, trombone ensemble, and trumpet ensemble. The only difference is these are staccato, staccato, and then right here we have whatever this is. I don't know how to say it. Esforzando or something like that. But this is what it sounds like. I didn't make any other modifications to these other than I literally clicked Esforzando thing and staccato, and I turned down some of the reverb, I think, on the strings. But otherwise, this is like the default sounds. And then finally, we have the synthesized piece, which gives us the in-your-face feeling. And this is actually surprisingly easy to make. I will show you. Again, I don't have this horn sample that it was made from, so it's kind of hard for me to replicate the exact patch, but I'll show you how this was made in a separate serum here in a second. But this is what it sounds like. So you have two pieces to this. It's made from the original sample, the horn sample. So you can hear that. You can actually put samples, sound effects into the noise oscillator over here, and then you import it over here as well, and that's how you get the synthesized sound. So you don't think that you'd hear that? When you combine that with the original sample, that's when you get that like super delicious synthesized sound. I turned this oscillator off. This one was on too. But it felt too overwhelming for the sound I was trying to achieve, so I ended up turning that off. But let me show you how that's made really quickly. So you'd open up a new serum, initialize it, Now you can go online and you can get go to like freesound.org, I think is one of them, and those websites have like just one shots of a sample at the note C. So like I have a bunch of them here. These are ones that I've used when I mentioned sound designing. These are ones that I've been using to create synthesized sounds, like the Maramba one, or actually my favorite one is this one right here. So let's go Kalamba, or whatever that is, sampled. So here's one that I made. So how that is achieved, we'll use the saxophone for this because it's a brass instrument. The key is first and foremost getting the original sample into the noise oscillator here so that you can play it. You want it to show up under user so you can select it. To do that, click menu, show Serum presets folder, and then presets noises, and then user, and then that's where I have put the sample. So if I open that, you'd hear this same folder. Just put it there for ease of use. But now that it's in here, if you reload Serum, because it doesn't update automatically, it'll then appear down here, and you can select it here. So we'll make it a one shot and key tracking. Oh, turn off the oscillator. So you can hear that it's now playing through the noise oscillator. And then the next piece is to create the synthesized part, which really fills out the sound. That combined with, of course, compression and distortion. So what we would do is, go ahead and close out of those. Pull it up down here, the folder, so you can click and drag it. And, gotta turn on the oscillator, of course. Import it as constant frame size, pitch average. If you click on this, you can switch to 3D mode, which I'm sure you know. Turn that off. So this is all you hear right now when you play it. So the magic of importing a sample is that when you move the wavetable position, sounds like trash right now, but when you move the wavetable position over time, it actually plays out that sample. And this is the piece that like truly blew my mind when I learned it. So LFO, we'll click and drag to the end. Key is not to be in BPM mode. You want it to be in Hertz mode here. You know, one more thing real quick. You also want it to be an envelope. An envelope just triggers it one time after you hit it, so it'll play through the LFO just one time. If we had it on something, it would. See how it just plays through to the end and stops. It triggers like dubstep, where it goes wub, 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 and it plays through over and over and over again. You only want it to go through the sample one time, because as if you're playing the sample one time. Sounds like trash right now, but that's only because we haven't selected the appropriate rate. So if you can really just scan through this, and that's how you find the right rate. So that's obviously not right. Now it's starting to sound more like I know it's 17.8. Sounds more like an instrument now. Now what you do, you want to clean up the sample. So you'd go in here. These are all the frames of the sample. You want to max out the grid size to 64. Do a little processing. So crossfade edges. Gets rid of just a little bit of the crunchiness. Also remove DC offset. That's all you got to do there. It's barely audible, but it makes it just a little bit smoother. And then one other thing that I would typically do is import this exact same wavetable. Yes, this is how you would make a wavetable, and you put it in the second oscillator. So the way that you would export this, if you want to make your own wavetables, is you would do everything we've just mentioned, go to export, and then export all as 32-bit wave. I've already done it, so I saved it as saxophone high C. And then you go here, and it's now in my wavetable folder, so I can open it up. So now we have the exact same wavetable. Oh, I didn't put the LFO on it. That will cause issues. And there we go. So now we have the exact same one. Usually I would pitch one up an octave. It's kind of loud. There we go. And So that's now we've created the synthesized piece of the saxophone, and then we bring in the original sample. It now sounds a lot more synthesized and natural at the same time. It's that truly full organic plus synthesized sound, whatever you want to call it. Get a healthy mix here. And that's how you, again, create that very full sound. Only other things I would mess with would be maybe putting a bit of hyper dimension on and distortion. This tube is usually fine. Just give it a little more crunch. I don't even see it. That's on. I'm not getting any visual feedback on my compressor. That's weird. But it is compressing it. A little reverb. And then the last piece is a saxophone, as you know. There's no better way to say this. The only way you play a saxophone is by blowing through whatever the heck it's called. And that, to make it sound more natural, you would eventually run out of breath if you're playing a saxophone. So each note should kind of dip down over time. So I'd maybe lower the sustain and increase the decay to maybe 2 seconds. That's about all I can breathe for is 2 seconds. Now it's just a little bit more natural sounding. In my opinion, it's all up to you, man. Whatever the heck you want to do. And now we've created a full synthesized brass sound, and then I would just save it as a patch. Now I'm curious to see what it sounds like. Nowhere near as cool as this one, but that's because they have a more full sample here. This horn sample is really what's doing the trick, because this is their sample versus our sample. So you're gonna get a better sound out of that horn than from my puny little saxophone, but you get the idea. That's how that synthesized brass is actually made. So once all those pieces are put together, you get the full sound. I'm sure they did some different processing here too. I'm just rambling now. Yeah, that's how you do the whole thing, man. Again, it's a mix of the real world instruments plus the synthesized. You can't do it with just synthesized, and you can't do it with just real world instruments. So that's what I would recommend. I'm locking up now, but I'm gonna send you the serum patch here so that you can mess around with that. And otherwise, I hope that helped. Cheers.